They tried to sell my $2.3 million ranch while I was burying my father. I got back at 6 in the morning. Eyes burning, suit still wrinkled from the funeral I'd barely finished, only to find strangers with clipboards roaming my land. A massive for auction sign was staked right into my front yard. And there she was, Karen Whitfield, president of the HOA I never joined, calling 911 to report me for trespassing on property that's been in my family for 3 generations. I never signed their forms, never paid their dues, never gave them an inch, but they thought I was gone long enough for them to take everything. They picked the worst time, and the wrong man. What would you do if your entire legacy was on the auction block, while you were 800 miles away, grieving your father? Drop a comment below, because what I did next turned their little fake auction into a full-blown reckoning. My name is Jake Morrison, 3rd-generation cattle rancher in Colorado. The 47 acres I call home have been in my family since 1967, when my grandfather bought raw land and built everything from scratch. The cedar fence, the red barn, even the gravel road leading to our front porch. After my wife Sarah died from cancer 2 years ago, it's just been me and my 16-year-old daughter, Emma, holding this place together with 30 head of cattle and a promise to keep the Morrison legacy alive. 3 years ago, that piece ended. Developers built the Maplewood Heights subdivision right next to my property. Within months, they formed an HOA and elected Karen Whitfield as president. Karen was a former city planner from Denver, the kind who measured grass with a ruler and sent violation notices for Christmas lights left up past January 2nd. The trouble started right away. First, she claimed my cedar fence encroached 18 inches into their common area. Then came the odor complaints about cattle on a cattle ranch. Finally, she decided my gravel road violated their precious entrance median. Every month brought something new. Another notice, another threat, another attempt to force me into compliance with rules I'd never agreed to follow. Then last Tuesday, I got the call every son dreads. My father gone. Massive heart attack in Montana. I left that night, planning to stay the full week for the funeral and his affairs. Emma stayed with her best friend's family, and my neighbor, Bill Hendricks, promised to check on the cattle twice a day. But Thursday evening, I got a text that chilled my blood. Dad, you need to come home now. Something's happening at the ranch. I drove through the night, headlights cutting through fog and exhaustion. As dawn broke over the front range, I saw it. Not the familiar sight of grazing cattle, but 2 men in suits, measuring my fence line like they owned the place. A massive wooden sign dominated my yard. Maplewood Heights, upcoming auction. I parked hard, boots crunching on the same gravel my grandfather had laid 50 years ago. Excuse me, I said, voice tight. What exactly are you doing on my property? The taller man barely looked up. Sir, we're conducting a pre-auction assessment. This property is scheduled for public sale this Saturday. My hands curled into fists. This is my land. You're trespassing. That's when the shorter man made his mistake. Smirking. Sir, we have legal authorization. Please don't interfere with our work. Before I could even call the sheriff, the tall one was already on his phone. We have a situation here, he said. Subject is being confrontational. Minutes later, a white Mercedes SUV came barreling up my driveway, dust cloud behind it. Out stepped Karen Whitfield, dressed like she was walking into a board meeting, not stealing a man's ranch at sunrise. Mr. Morrison, she greeted me, fake smile glued to her face. You're in violation of a court order. These gentlemen have every right to be here. What court order? I demanded. This is my property, and I want them gone. Her smile vanished. She pulled out her phone. 911, yes, I need police immediately. We have a trespasser threatening our legal assessment team. 20 minutes later, Deputy Maria Santos pulled up. I knew her, her daughter and Emma were friends. We'd sat together at school fundraisers. She looked confused, stepping out of the cruiser. Karen launched into her act instantly. Officer, this man is interfering with a legal property assessment. We have full authority under Colorado statute. Maria's brow furrowed. Ma'am, can you show me your documentation? Karen handed her a thick folder full of official-looking papers. The top page read, Notice of Property Forfeiture, signed by something called the Maplewood Heights Community Authority. According to her papers, I supposedly owed $47,000 in fines and fees for violations, and my fence encroachment somehow constituted adverse possession in reverse. I stared at the page, feeling the world tilt under my boots. Maria, I've never seen this before. Not once. Karen folded her arms. Ignorance of HOA covenants isn't a defense, Mr. Morrison. Certified mail was attempted multiple times. Refusal to accept delivery counts as acknowledgement. I never refused any mail, I protested, pulling out my phone. Here, my property deed, my tax receipts. This ranch has been in my family for 60 years. Deputy Santos examined both sets of documents, frowning deeper. Ma'am, according to county records, this appears to be Mr. Morrison's property, legally. Karen bristled. The HOA has statutory authority. His fence triggered the abandonment clause. He owes $47,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $47,000 for a fence older than she was. This is a civil matter, Maria said firmly. I can't remove anyone without a warrant. Karen's voice snapped. Then remove him from HOA property. I took a breath. Ma'am, I'm standing on my own land. Deputy Santos shook her head. Both parties need to resolve this in court. Karen's jaw tightened. The auction is Saturday. This delay is costing us thousands. That's when I noticed it. That damned auction sign was inside my fence line, 2 feet onto my land. Karen, that sign is on my property. Remove it. Now. Touch that sign and I'll have you arrested for vandalism, she threatened. I tried calling my lawyer, Tom Bradley, voicemail. Out of town until Wednesday. 2 others? Unavailable. The timing was perfect. Too perfect. Karen smiled. Timing is everything, Mr. Morrison. While we argued, the assessors kept measuring. I stormed into the barn and pulled out my grandfather's original 1967 survey. Yellowed, fragile, but still binding. This proves my fence is 3 feet inside my boundary. The lead assessor didn't even blink. That survey's outdated. We have a 2022 version showing clear encroachment. Updated by who? I snapped. The HOA commissioned it, Karen said smoothly. Just then, the sound of a familiar engine broke the tension. My neighbor Bill Hendricks, rolling up in his old Ford pickup, dust trailing behind him like a battle flag. Bill was 73, a retired county surveyor. If anyone knew where that fence belonged, it was him. Jake, he said, climbing out, voice rough with concern. I tried calling you. These people were here yesterday too, Bill said, shaking his head. Measuring, taking pictures. Like they owned the place. Sir, this is private HOA business, Karen replied coldly. Bill let out a dry laugh, the kind that carried 40 years of dust and defiance. Lady, I've lived here longer than you've been breathing HOA air. That fence hasn't moved an inch since Jake's granddad built it. By now, neighbors had started drifting out from the subdivision, drawn by the commotion. Some stood behind Karen, arms crossed, whispering. Others lingered on the edges, clearly uncomfortable. Mrs. Patterson, whose dog I'd pulled out of my cattle pond twice, wouldn't even meet my eyes. 2 other neighbors I didn't recognize started filming with their phones. Please document everything, Karen ordered, her voice icy. We'll need evidence of his obstruction. That's when Deputy Santos spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension like a clean wind. Ma'am, she said evenly, under Colorado law, adverse possession requires 18 years of continuous occupation. If this fence has been here for 58, long before this subdivision existed, then Mr. Morrison's deed takes precedence. For the first time that morning, I felt a flicker of hope. The law was on my side. My grandfather's work still carried weight, even against Karen's little empire. But Karen didn't flinch. Her jaw tightened. We'll see what the emergency board meeting decides this afternoon. At 2 o'clock sharp, she called an emergency HOA board meeting at her house. And, of course, I wasn't invited. I went anyway. When I knocked on her door, she opened it with that same smug smile. "This is a private meeting, Mr. Morrison. You're not an HOA member." "I'm the property owner you're trying to steal from," I said evenly. "I have every right to defend myself." Inside sat 5 people, Karen as president, Dr. Richard Stanton as vice president, Jennifer Walsh as secretary, Marcus Chun as treasurer, and Patricia Vance as member-at-large. Later I'd learn the truth. Jennifer worked for Karen's real estate company, and Dr. Stanton had invested $50,000 into Karen's development projects. The fix had been in from day one. I laid out my evidence like a man building a defense brick by brick: the original 1967 deed, the survey, 60 years of tax receipts, and my grandfather's handwritten notes describing how he set every fence post himself. "These are old documents," Karen said dismissively, flipping through the papers without looking. "Current law applies." "According to whose survey?" I demanded, because I never authorized one. She produced a glossy document dated March 2022. A professional survey signed by someone named Robert Kumar from Mountain West Land Services. I'd never heard of him. "I'd like to contact the surveyor directly," I said. "That's not necessary," Karen snapped. "The survey is certified." Dr. Stanton cleared his throat and read from the HOA covenant. "Any encroachment onto common area constitutes abandonment of property rights." According to their interpretation, I had somehow abandoned a strip of my land, meaning it reverted to HOA control. Jennifer Walsh added more fuel, pulling out meeting minutes from 2021 claiming I'd been notified and failed to respond. I had never received a single letter. Marcus Chen, the treasurer, shifted in his seat. "Maybe we should postpone until legal counsel reviews everything," he said cautiously. "I've already contacted Secure Shield Security for the auction," Karen interrupted sharply. "Given Mr. Morrison's hostile behavior, we'll need professional protection." "You're hiring armed security to help you steal my land?" I said in disbelief. Patricia Vance spoke softly. "Karen, maybe we should reconsider this. We're proceeding as planned." Karen cut her off coldly. "But I'd done my own homework. Colorado Revised Statute 38-33.3-116. HOAs can't claim ownership just from covenant violations. Actual abandonment requires clear intent and vacation of property. I had lived here, worked here, paid taxes here. This land had never been abandoned. The real turning point came when I demanded to see all their correspondence. Karen flipped open a file and handed me printed emails, all sent to j.morrison.ranch@gmail.com. My real email? jake.morris.ranch@gmail.com. "You sent everything to the wrong address," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. "Typographical errors don't invalidate notice," Karen shot back. "You never verified my contact information," I countered. "That's not notice, that's negligence." Bill Hendricks, who'd followed me in, spoke up from the back of the room. "I check Jake's place every day," he said. "If anyone had been surveying that land, I'd have seen them." "Are you a licensed surveyor?" Dr. Stanton asked skeptically. Bill straightened his shoulders. "Retired county surveyor, still licensed. And that fence is exactly where it's always been." When it came to the vote, it was all theater. Karen, Stanton, and Walsh voted yes. Marcus Chen abstained. Patricia Vance said no. Motion passed 3-1. "You're about to make a serious legal mistake," I warned. Karen smiled. "We'll see about that." Sunday morning brought an even bigger punch to the gut. Karen was hosting a pre-auction viewing of my ranch, the land my grandfather had died defending from droughts and debt. 3 potential buyers showed up. Karen led them proudly across my property like she was showing off her own personal prize. I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, heart pounding with anger. Every time someone got close, I stood and introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Jake Morrison. I own this ranch. Are you interested in buying stolen property?" The first buyer, a slick Denver developer, left instantly. The second, a young couple, exchanged uneasy glances and left soon after. The third, an investor, started questioning Karen about title insurance. Ma'am, I'll need to see clear title before I consider bidding, he said. Karen hesitated. All legal documentation will be provided at the auction. That hesitation said it all. Across the street, my neighbor Tommy Martinez had been filming everything from his bedroom window. He was 23, ran a YouTube channel called Rural Real Talk, and had 47,000 subscribers. Jake, this is insane, he said, jogging over with his camera. I'm posting this online. I hesitated. But then I saw Karen's auction flyers plastered all over the neighborhood. That was the final straw. Go ahead, Tommy, I said. Let the world see. That evening, Tommy went live with the video titled, Insane. HOA trying to steal neighbor's ranch. Within the first hour, 847 people were watching, flooding the comments with outrage and support. By Monday, Channel 9 News had called. Reporter Sarah Kim wanted an interview. She contacted Karen for comment. Karen agreed, then suddenly backed out. Dr. Stanton refused entirely. That night, Channel 9 aired the headline, HOA ranch seizure sparks legal questions. Meanwhile, my daughter Emma had been doing her own digging. Dad, she said, eyes fierce with determination. They don't have a legal permit for that auction. Colorado law requires one. I called the county clerk the next morning. Emma was right. Sir, the clerk said, they can't legally hold an auction without a valid permit filed 30 days in advance and proof of ownership. But Karen doubled down. She hired Secure Shield security for auction day, 2 armed guards, a patrol car, and traffic barriers. When I confronted the security supervisor, he looked uneasy. Sir, we're just here to maintain order. What if I told you the people who hired you don't own this property? I asked. He frowned. Then we'd need to review our contract. I told him he should because under Colorado law, unauthorized property auctions aren't just illegal. They're fraud. By that evening, the neighborhood was splitting into factions. Some siding with truth, others with power. But I wasn't going anywhere. This was my land. And I was done being quiet. The Nextdoor app had turned into a battlefield overnight. Neighbors were taking sides, pro-Jake and pro-Karen, and the arguments were fierce. Some accused Karen of overreach. Others claimed I was disrupting community harmony. Then, something unexpected happened. People started speaking up. Mrs. Patterson, the same woman who once avoided my gaze, finally found her voice. Karen tried to fine me $2,000 for planting roses. She posted, I'm tired of her bullying. Her words lit a spark. One by one, others shared stories of harassment and intimidation under Karen's reign. It wasn't just me anymore. That same evening, I contacted the Colorado Bar Association, desperate for help. They referred me to Sarah Chun, a property rights attorney with a reputation for taking down corrupt HOAs. When I explained what had happened, her response was immediate. Jake, this sounds like actionable fraud. Meet me Wednesday morning. But Tuesday night, before I could breathe easy, another blow landed. A certified letter from Karen. It demanded that I vacate my property by Friday, claiming I was trespassing in violation of a restraining order I'd never even heard of. My hands shook as I dialed Sarah Chen's office. Her assistant checked court records. No restraining order exists under your name, Mr. Morrison. When Sarah called back, her voice was calm but sharp as a knife. Someone is lying to you, Jake, and we're going to find out who. Wednesday morning changed everything. Sarah Chan was in her 40s, composed, confident, the kind of woman who'd walk through legal fire and come out tempered steel. Her office looked like a command center. Bring me everything, she said. Every letter, every notice, every scrap of paper they've sent you. She spread my documents across her polished conference table like puzzle pieces in a crime scene. As she read, her expression hardened from curiosity to outrage. Finally, she looked up, eyes bright with conviction. Jake, I don't think this HOA has any legal authority over your property. Sarah pulled out the original 2019 subdivision plat, and there it was in black and white, HOA boundaries that explicitly excluded my ranch. The developer's agreement spelled it out clearly. Pre-existing properties retain full autonomy. Sarah tapped the line with her pen. Your land was intentionally excluded. They have zero jurisdiction over you. Then came the smoking gun. Sarah uncovered an amended covenant extension Karen had filed in 2021, claiming to expand HOA control over adjacent properties. But the extension had never been approved by the county and never signed by any affected landowners. Sarah's voice dropped. Jake, this document is fraudulent. Karen forged your consent. My stomach twisted. I remembered my grandfather's words years ago when developers first came knocking. We'll keep our land free, Jake. Never let them box us in. Later that night, I found his handwritten notes tucked in the family Bible. Records of that 2018 meeting with the original developer, who'd promised the ranch would never fall under HOA control. Sarah dug even deeper. Within hours, she found an email from the original developer to the county planner, confirming exactly that. Morrison Ranch must remain exempt from all HOA authority. The county's official approval documents matched. Sarah leaned back, a small, triumphant smile forming. Jake, you have ironclad legal protection. This HOA never had the right to touch your property. But the fraud went deeper, much deeper. Sarah called the surveyor listed on Karen's boundary report, a man named Robert Kumar from Mountain West Land Services. He answered on speakerphone. I never surveyed any land for Maplewood Heights, he said firmly. That signature isn't mine. That's forgery, identity theft. Sarah's pen froze mid-note. Can we record this call? Please do, Kumar said. I'm filing criminal charges today. Then came the motive. Sarah's investigation revealed that Karen's real estate company had an exclusive listing agreement ready for my ranch. The forced sale would have netted her over $140,000 in commission. Even worse, Dr. Stanton's wife worked for Karen's company. Sarah's voice was low but steady. Jake, this isn't a dispute anymore. This is a criminal conspiracy. Within hours, Sarah filed an emergency injunction to stop Saturday's auction and requested a full criminal investigation for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. She also submitted complaints to the district attorney and the state real estate commission. We're not just stopping the auction, Jake, she said. We're ending their entire operation. By Thursday morning, my kitchen had turned into a war room. Legal documents covered every inch of my dining table. Sarah stood at the head like a general briefing her troops. Around her sat Bill Hendricks, Tommy Martinez, and Robert Kumar, the man whose signature had been stolen. We have 48 hours to build an airtight case, Sarah said, sketching a timeline on my whiteboard. The evidence was overwhelming. My original 1967 deed, the 2018 developer agreement excluding my ranch, county approval documents with the exemption clause, the forged survey, and Karen's real estate listing proving financial motive. This is the most solid property rights case I've ever seen, Sarah said, her tone electric with confidence. She began assembling expert witnesses, Bill as the retired surveyor, Kumar as the identity theft victim, Attorney Bob Sullivan for HOA law, County Clerk Lisa Martinez for missing auction permits, and even James Walsh, the original developer and Jennifer Walsh's ex-husband. Sarah discovered even more. Karen never filed a proper lien. Her supposed $47,000 fine against my ranch had no legal foundation. You can't just declare debt without due process, Sarah explained. The case was so airtight that she reached out to the FBI's white-collar crime division. After reviewing our evidence, Agent Rodriguez agreed to investigate. This looks like systematic fraud, he said. Tommy handled media coordination, reaching out to larger YouTube channels. Within a day, Legal Eagle agreed to analyze the case, and every local news outlet wanted interviews. Stay calm, Sarah reminded me. Let the evidence do the talking. Meanwhile, our community was rallying. A Save Jake's Ranch group had formed online with 127 neighbors signing a petition. Mrs. Patterson came forward again. Karen had threatened her with a $5,000 fine for planting flowers. 3 more homeowners shared similar stories. Emma's research uncovered the final piece. Karen's real estate company was on the verge of bankruptcy. She needed my land sale to stay afloat. It was pure greed. By Thursday afternoon, Sarah had filed emergency restraining orders against the HOA and coordinated with the sheriff's office to prevent any illegal auction. Tommy planned to live stream the confrontation. "We're not just winning," Sarah said with quiet fire. "We're making sure this never happens to anyone else." That night, as we prepared for Friday's showdown, Sarah received subpoenaed emails from Karen's account. The final proof. Karen had written to Dr. Stanton, "Once we get Morrison's land, we split the profit." His reply, "Are you sure this is legal?" Karen's answer chilled me to the bone. "Legal is what we make it." Tommy's latest video, HOA fraud exposed. Jake Morrison's fight for his land, hit 847,000 views, with thousands of supportive comments flooding in. As I sat on my porch that Thursday evening, watching the sunset burn the Rockies gold and violet, a calm washed over me. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Tomorrow, justice would finally have its day. And by Friday morning, that hope turned into panic in Karen's camp. She just received notice of Sarah's injunction. Desperation set in. She called an emergency HOA meeting for 7 a.m., one last attempt to push her doomed auction through. "We need to hold the auction today." Karen's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood at the head of her dining room table, face pale, eyes bloodshot, her hands trembling, but still trying to sound in control. "Karen, we can't just change the auction date now," Dr. Stanton protested, looking exhausted. "People have already made plans." Karen slammed her hand on the table. "We can do whatever we want. I'm the president." But even her own authority was slipping. Her attorney, David Pierce, called moments later, his tone grim. "Karen, the injunction Sarah Chin filed is serious. You could face criminal charges." Karen snapped. "You said the covenant extension was legal." "I said it might be legal," Pierce corrected sharply. "This is completely different." There was a pause. Then his voice turned final. "Effective immediately. I'm withdrawing as your attorney." Click. Silence. Karen's mask cracked. She began to panic. She ordered Jennifer Walsh to start deleting incriminating emails from the HOA server. "Karen, that could be obstruction of justice," Jennifer warned quietly. "Your job depends on this, Jennifer," Karen hissed. But Jennifer wasn't that naive anymore. Unbeknownst to Karen, she had already forwarded every email to her personal account. Meanwhile, in a last, desperate move, Karen tried to bribe the county clerk, offering Lisa Martinez $5,000 to backdate an auction permit. Lisa hit record on her phone. "Ma'am," she said calmly, "that's attempted bribery." Minutes later, the clerk called the sheriff's office. A criminal investigation was officially opened. Then came another blow. Secure Shield Security, the firm Karen had hired, reviewed Sarah Chen's legal filings. "Ma'am, we can't provide security for a potentially illegal event," their supervisor told her. "You're in breach of contract," Karen screamed. "Better that," he replied, "than being accessories to fraud." The HOA board was collapsing from within. Marcus Chun resigned by email. Patricia Vance demanded an emergency vote to cancel the auction entirely. "Maybe we should postpone this," Dr. Stanton muttered, finally showing an ounce of reason. But Karen wouldn't let go. "We're past the point of no return," she barked. Jennifer Walsh secretly recorded the entire meeting. By Friday afternoon, the media descended. 3 news vans rolled into Maplewood Heights, Channel 9, Fox 31, and Denver 7, their cameras ready. Karen hid inside her house, curtains drawn, while Dr. Stanton made things worse with a disastrous interview. "No comment, but we're legally justified," he told Channel 9. The reporter's eyebrow lifted. "Even if the surveyor says his signature was forged?" Dr. Stanton froze, his face draining of color. That forged signature, wait. He realized, in real time, that Karen had kept him in the dark. Meanwhile, Tommy's live stream was exploding. 12,000 viewers and counting. Legal experts filled the chat, breaking down fraud statutes for an audience that couldn't believe what they were watching. Donations poured in for my legal defense. This is bigger than Jake's ranch now, Tommy told his audience. This is about stopping corruption everywhere. That afternoon, FBI agent Rodriguez arrived at my ranch. He was calm, methodical, his badge catching the sunlight as he flipped through Sarah's documents. Mr. Morrison, he said, this appears to be systematic fraud. We're opening a federal investigation. By now, Robert Kumar had filed criminal complaints for identity theft. His attorney threatened a $500,000 lawsuit against the HOA. On camera, Kumar said firmly, I've been a surveyor for 25 years. This is the most outrageous fraud I've ever seen. He explained that because the scheme used email and forged documents, it fell under federal wire fraud statutes, crossing state and federal lines. Identity theft for financial gain, wire fraud, conspiracy, the kind of charges that carry mandatory prison sentences. Takeaway, federal fraud prosecutions have a 95% conviction rate. By Friday evening, the neighborhood was tearing itself apart. Pro-Jake signs popped up in 23 yards, while only 7 dared to show pro-Karen. Some residents even hung banners reading, Fire Karen. Deputy Santos briefed the sheriff. This looks like clear fraud, sir. Sheriff Martinez nodded. We'll have units on scene tomorrow. Be ready for arrests. Karen, meanwhile, was spiraling. She hired 3 private investigators to dig up dirt on me. They found nothing. Ma'am, one of them told her, this man's a model citizen. Jennifer Walsh, finally breaking free of fear, provided the FBI with a complete archive of emails showing that Karen's plan had been in motion for over 6 months. It documented multiple victims, other homeowners targeted, Dr. Stanton's financial ties, the entire conspiracy laid bare. Jennifer met with Agent Rodriguez personally. I can't be part of this anymore, she told him. That night, my ranch became a beacon of solidarity. Bill, Tommy, Sarah, and a dozen neighbors gathered around my kitchen table. Papers and laptops covered every surface. Jake, Sarah said quietly, we're ready for tomorrow. I nodded, my heart steady now. Then let's go get my land back. Saturday morning dawned cold and clear. Frost glazed the pasture grass, sparkling under the first light. It crunched beneath our boots as we assembled near the fence line. Sarah Chun arrived first, her briefcase like a weapon. Bill Hendricks came with his surveying gear, Tommy with his camera rig, and Robert Kumar holding the proof that had sparked this reckoning. By 6 a.m., 23 neighbors stood with us. For news crews set up cameras, their lenses trained on the heart of the storm. Sheriff's deputies positioned themselves strategically along the road. Whatever happens today, I told everyone, we tell the truth. Always. At 7 a.m. sharp, Karen arrived in her white Mercedes SUV, Dr. Stanton riding silently beside her. Behind them came 2 men in tactical gear, their black uniforms reading Patriot Defense Services. Sarah leaned toward me and whispered, those aren't real security. They're here to intimidate. By 8 a.m., a crowd of 67 people filled the ranch entrance. Supporters, reporters, curious neighbors, and cameras everywhere. Tommy's live stream hit 18,000 viewers. Overhead, news helicopters circled like vultures. Karen's confidence evaporated under the morning sun. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. At 8:30, Sarah approached her, holding the emergency injunction high for the cameras. Ms. Whitfield, Sarah declared, her voice clear and unwavering, you are legally required to halt this auction immediately. Karen's jaw tightened. I don't recognize your authority. Sarah didn't flinch. This is a court order, not a request. And then, in one reckless, self-destructive act, Karen tore the injunction in half right there, in front of the cameras. The sound of ripping paper echoed across the crowd. At 9 a.m., Sheriff Martinez arrived with 4 deputies. He reviewed the documents carefully, then turned to Karen. Ma'am, this is a valid court order. You need to comply. Karen pointed at me, desperation twisting her face. Sheriff, this man is trespassing on HOA property. The sheriff straightened, voice firm. According to county records, This is his property. The crowd murmured. Then Robert Kumar stepped forward. Ma'am, he said loudly, you forged my signature on that survey. Karen's eyes went wide. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a licensed surveyor, Kumar said, holding up his ID for the cameras. That is not my signature, and I have never worked for your HOA. Gasps rippled through the crowd. News cameras zoomed in on Karen's face as her world began to collapse. At 9:15, two black SUVs rolled up the gravel drive. FBI agent Rodriguez stepped out, his presence commanding instant silence. Ms. Whitfield, he said, we need to speak with you regarding federal fraud charges. Karen's voice cracked. I'm busy conducting legal business. Ma'am, Rodriguez repeated, calm but firm. This is legal business. Step over here, please. Dr. Stanton began backing away, realizing too late how deep he was in. Then Jennifer Walsh appeared, laptop in hand, walking straight toward the FBI. I have everything, she said, opening her computer. Emails, meeting minutes, proof this was planned for months. Karen spun on her. You're violating attorney-client privilege. Jennifer didn't even hesitate. I'm not your attorney, Karen. I'm your victim. At 9:45, in one final desperate act, Karen climbed onto a makeshift podium and tried to shout over the noise. This auction will proceed as scheduled. But before she could say another word, Ma'am, Sheriff Martinez said, stepping forward, please step down. This auction is halted by court order. Sheriff Martinez's voice boomed across the crowd. Karen spun toward him, her face twisted with fury. You have no authority here, she screamed. That's when Agent Rodriguez stepped forward, badge gleaming in the morning light. He held up a folder. Karen Whitfield, he said firmly, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and attempted property theft. Karen's defiance shattered. This is harassment. I know my rights, she shrieked as the cuffs clicked tightly around her wrists. Rodriguez didn't even blink. You have the right to remain silent, he replied calmly, and I strongly suggest you use it. The crowd erupted. Cheers and applause rippled through the valley, echoing off the hills like thunder. Dr. Stanton, pale and sweating, stumbled forward. Agent Rodriguez, I want to cooperate, he said nervously. Karen told me the survey was legitimate. I invested money, but I didn't know it was fraud. Rodriguez nodded coldly. Sir, we'll need a complete statement. The two so-called Patriot Defense Guards froze, realizing what was happening. They tore off their tactical vests and stepped back. Ma'am, we were just here for crowd control, one stammered. Sheriff Martinez eyed them sternly. Gentlemen, you're not licensed for security work in this county. They didn't wait for a second warning. They were gone within minutes. News crews swarmed the scene. Channel 9 went live with breaking coverage. HOA president arrested for fraud. Tommy's live stream exploded to 47,000 viewers. The chat flooded with heart emojis, clapping hands, and words like justice. Finally, neighbors who had once stood behind Karen began stepping forward, faces full of guilt. Jake, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Patterson whispered, tears streaming down her face. She threatened to fine me if I didn't support her. I put a hand on her shoulder. You were scared, Mrs. Patterson. I understand completely. Across the crowd, former supporters were turning angry, shouting about the lies and intimidation they'd suffered. I walked over to the wooden auction sign that had started this nightmare. Sheriff, I said quietly, can I remove this from my property now? Martinez nodded, a small smile crossing his face. It's your land, Mr. Morrison. I gripped the signpost and pulled it from the earth, soil that had belonged to my family for 60 years. The crowd cheered as I snapped the sign in half across my knee. The sharp crack echoed like a gunshot of freedom. Sheriff Martinez climbed onto my front porch steps and faced the cameras. The morning air was still, every word carrying across the ranch. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, I am holding a federal arrest warrant. He read the charges clearly, his voice steady. Karen Whitfield is under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, and attempted theft of real property. As Agent Rodriguez escorted Karen toward the FBI vehicle, she twisted back, shouting in desperation, "This is my community. I built this place. You'll all regret this." But the crowd had turned completely. "Karen, you lied to all of us," Mrs. Patterson yelled. "You fined me $3,000 for my garden shed," shouted Mike Chun. Their anger was righteous. Their fear was gone. "Lock her up! Lock her up!" The crowd began to chant. I stepped onto my porch, the same planks my grandfather had built in 1967, and raised my hand. The noise faded to silence. 200 faces looked up at me. News cameras zoomed in. This land belonged to my grandfather. I began, my voice steady. Then my father. And now me. I held up a yellow document. This is the original 1967 deed. It predates every home in that subdivision. I looked out over the valley, my voice growing stronger. This fence was built before Karen Whitfield was even born. And this ranch will still stand long after she's forgotten. Applause erupted, rolling across the land like thunder after a storm. Sarah Chun stepped up beside me, addressing the cameras. "Today," she said firmly, "we proved that property rights still matter in America. No HOA, no matter how corrupt, can steal a family's land through forged documents." She pointed toward the FBI car where Karen sat handcuffed. Karen Whitfield thought she was above the law. She was wrong. This ranch is, and always will be, Jake Morrison's. Sheriff Martinez took the microphone next. "This investigation has revealed systematic fraud against multiple homeowners," he said. "We will review every action taken under Karen Whitfield's leadership for the past 3 years. Property owners who were victimized should contact our office immediately. Colorado will not tolerate this kind of white-collar crime." Then Agent Rodriguez spoke, his tone carrying the full weight of federal authority. "Today's arrests send a clear message," he declared. "Using forged documents to steal property is a federal crime, and we will prosecute anyone who attempts to defraud Colorado homeowners." The cameras turned to Robert Kumar, the veteran surveyor whose forged signature had exposed it all. "My professional reputation was stolen," Kumar said, voice filled with controlled anger. "I've been a surveyor for 25 years, and I've never seen such blatant fraud. This could have destroyed an innocent family." He looked directly into the camera. "Property ownership established by original deeds cannot be erased by an HOA. Forged surveys are both state and federal crimes, and they carry real consequences." Dr. Stanton approached me next, face pale with shame. "Jake," he said softly, "I owe you a personal apology. I was deceived by Karen's lies. I should have verified everything myself." He turned to the cameras. "I'm resigning from the HOA board immediately." Then came Jennifer Walsh, her eyes red with tears but her voice steady. "I worked for Karen, but when I saw the truth, I couldn't stay silent," she said. "She threatened my job if I didn't help forge documents, but I saved every email. Jake Morrison deserves justice, and he got it today." As Karen was loaded into the FBI vehicle, she made one last desperate attempt. "This isn't over, Morrison. I'll appeal everything. You haven't won anything." I walked toward the car, boots crunching on the same gravel my grandfather laid 50 years ago. Agent Rodriguez lowered the window so she could hear me. "Karen," I said quietly, "this land has been in my family for 60 years. It'll be here for 60 more." I met her eyes, calm and unwavering. "You won't be." For the first time, she fell silent. Tommy captured every moment. The crowd helping me tear down the last auction banner. The cheers rising as fabric ripped and fluttered in the cold air. His live stream hit 52,000 viewers across America. "Some things," I told the camera, "are not for sale. Family land is one of them." A photographer from Channel 9 caught the final image. Me standing in front of my grandfather's ranch house, the American flag waving in the morning breeze, cattle grazing peacefully behind me, the original fence line standing untouched. The caption beneath would read, Colorado rancher defeats HOA land scheme. That image of me standing on my porch, flag waving in the morning breeze, became a national symbol of justice. A victory for property rights shared across the internet. 1 month later, the legal aftermath came swift and clear. Karen Whitfield stood before a federal judge and pleaded guilty to fraud. Her sentence, 3 years in federal prison and $500,000 in restitution to her victims. Dr. Stanton received probation and a $50,000 fine for conspiracy. Jennifer Walsh, whose courage exposed the entire scheme, was granted immunity for her cooperation. The FBI investigation uncovered something even darker. Karen had defrauded 17 other homeowners with fake fines and fabricated enforcement letters. The entire Maplewood Heights HOA board was dissolved, and emergency elections brought in new leadership. Patricia Vance became the reform president. Her very first act was to sign a formal apology to me on behalf of the entire community. Under her leadership, the HOA rewrote every covenant to prevent abuse of power, dismissed the corrupt management company, and established a transparent system for complaints, one that actually protected homeowners. Meanwhile, Robert Kumar, the surveyor whose forged signature had started it all, won a $750,000 settlement for identity theft and professional defamation. My name and my integrity were restored, he told the local news. Karen, on the other hand, was permanently banned from the real estate industry. 6 months after the auction that never happened, I hosted the first annual Property Rights Victory Festival on my ranch. Over 500 people came from across Colorado. Families, lawyers, ranchers, all celebrating justice. There was barbecue, live music, and speeches about standing up to corruption. We raised $47,000, the exact amount Karen had tried to steal from me in fraudulent fines. As the sun set behind the front range, I stood before the crowd and said, "This land brought our community together. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us what really matters." Tommy's YouTube documentary about the ranch seizure reached over 2.7 million views, turning our story into a national case study. His new channel, Know Your Property Rights, became a trusted resource for homeowners across the country. Even law schools began using our case to teach white-collar fraud prosecution. Life slowly returned to peace. Mrs. Patterson now brings me homemade apple pie every Sunday. Mike Chun helps mend the fences that once divided us. The very neighbors who had once stood against me now volunteer to maintain the ranch. Karen divided us with lies, Mrs. Patterson told me once, but truth brought us back together. My daughter Emma dedicated her senior project to property rights and constitutional protections. She wrote, "My dad taught me that standing up for what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it." That paper now hangs beside the framed 1967 deed, yellowed with age, next to a photograph of my grandfather building the same fence that started this whole fight. Grandpa's legacy lives on in this land, Emma says proudly when her friends visit. Our case, Morrison versus Maplewood Heights, is now cited in Colorado property law and used nationwide as a reference for HOA fraud prosecution. Sarah Chun travels the country speaking at conferences, helping other attorneys expose similar corruption. Because of this case, new federal sentencing guidelines were enacted, adding enhanced penalties for property fraud and ensuring restitution for victims. But the greatest victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was right here at home. Every evening, I sit on my porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. My cattle graze peacefully in the same fields my father once tended. There are no HOA threats, no forged documents, no harassment, just quiet, honest peace. The original fence line still stands, untouched since 1967. A living reminder that some things can't be bought, bullied, or stolen. This was never about me versus them, I told Tommy's camera during the final interview. It was about right versus wrong, about protecting what matters: family, land, and legacy. Because in America, you can't steal a man's home with forged papers and fake authority. I looked straight into the lens and said, property rights matter because families matter, and some things are worth fighting for. As the camera panned across the ranch in golden light, the American flag waved in the evening breeze. The screen door creaked behind me. The cattle settled for the night. Text appeared on screen. Jake Morrison still lives on his family's ranch. Karen Whitfield is serving her sentence in federal prison. Maplewood Heights HOA became a model of transparency and accountability. Property values rose under honest leadership. I sometimes attend their meetings now, not as a rival, but as a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. Their new motto greets every visitor at the entrance. Community through respect, not coercion. The Colorado Attorney General even created a property rights hotline, inspired by our fight. And since then, dozens of homeowners across the state have stopped similar fraud before it could destroy their lives. But the real victory is personal. Emma will inherit this ranch knowing her family stood up to corruption and won. She'll tell her children the story of the grandfather who built the fence, the father who defended it, and the community that rediscovered its honor. To anyone facing HOA harassment, I said this in my final message to Tommy's viewers. Document everything. Know your rights. They can't take what's legally yours. Stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. As the camera faded out, I walked the fence line my grandfather built, running my hand along cedar posts weathered by 60 Colorado winters. The land stretched out before me, golden under the fading sun. I smiled, knowing this fight was over, and that the land would remain protected for generations to come. Some victories aren't about power or money. They're about legacy. And this fight was worth it.